Blood In, Blood Out's been one of the most requested movies for me to do a filming location video on. Now, I've seen this movie more times than I can remember, and since I've lived in Los Angeles my entire life, most likely I've driven by most of the locations countless times. But when it came time to do a video on the locations, it turned out that tracking them all down was going to be a little bit harder than I expected. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right away, we didn't find every single location, but we did find a lot of stuff. Spoiler alert, I didn't film inside of San Quentin prison. But let's get started because there's a lot to look at. So today we're going to check out filming locations for Blood In, Blood Out. Let's go see what we can find. So we just pulled over for a second to kind of figure out where we were going, and we happened to look over, and what a coincidence. We see this mural throughout the opening credits, and this is pretty much the same shot we get when the title of the movie appears across the screen. We also get some close-ups of different parts of the mural throughout the opening credits. And as you can see, everything today looks pretty much just like it did in the movie. We see Miklo getting dropped off in Los Angeles after hitching a ride back from Las Vegas. He gets dropped right here by the entrance to the 10 freeway with the LA County General Hospital in the background behind him. We see Miklo come walking out of the famous Cinco Puntos market. I'll go ahead and give you guys a minute to make fun of the way I pronounce that. He looks up at El Pino and we see the sign for Brooklyn Avenue, which is the former name of Cesar Chavez Avenue. He walks by this mural of Jesus, which is the exact same mural that we see in the movie Colors. Unfortunately, the building was torn down years ago. He walks by Jesse's barber shop and lets him know that he's going to be needing a haircut soon. And all these years later, Jesse's barber shop is alive and well. He comes around the corner and heads up these stairs into the alley. All of that would have been right here, but unfortunately everything in the alley was demolished. He stops at the top and says a prayer in front of this mural, which would have been located right up there at the top of the alley. That brick wall on the left is the one he's standing next to. As he's walking up the stairs, that school across the street can be seen in the background, and this house on the right side can be seen and looks pretty much exactly the same. We see Paco and Miklo head to the body shop to meet up with Cruz, and that takes place right here in this alley. But unfortunately, where the body shop used to be, a new building now stands in its place. This is where that auto shop once was. And right across the way, this is the house where they're looking at the chickens. That garage right there can actually be seen in the shot. A little bit later in the movie, right down here is where they see Spider and his gang tagging in their territory. And this is the exact same wall that they're tagging on. It looks exactly like it did in the movie. Even this fence right here on the left side is exactly the same. And this is the telephone pole that Miklo's hiding behind when he's sneaking up on Spider. This is where Paco, Miklo, and Cruz are hanging out by the green chop top overlooking the city. Miklo turns and he looks up at El Pino and he says,
"That tree is east close to me."
They're standing right here when they look up the hill and they see the police arrive. It's right inside this building that Cruz wins the art contest. And as you can see in these pictures from their website, The inside looks just like it did in the movie. So I'm not 100% sure that this is the right spot, but after hours of searching Los Angeles and hours of searching Google Earth, I'm about 90% sure that this is where Cruz gets dropped over the fire hydrant. Cruz would have pretty much been parked in between those two trees, which weren't there at the time, but if you notice that guardrail, it can be seen on the right side of the screen in the movie. Now they would have took Cruz out of the car and brought him somewhere right over here where the fire hydrant would have been. Now this picnic area can be seen behind them, but in the movie, all you see is a barricade blocking off that area. Alright, so let me explain to you why I'm almost positive this is the correct spot. Notice right down there you've got the 5 freeway crossing over the 110 freeway, which curves to the right up at the top of the screen. Just like in the movie, you've got a freeway crossing over another freeway that curves to the right up at the top. Notice right over here, there's another road that curves to the right, and right over here, a McDonald's. In the movie, you've got a road curving to the right, and right over here, the yellow glow of a McDonald's. Everything here pretty much matches perfectly. We see a member of Tres Puntos coming up the hill right here after marking his territory, and Spider and the rest of the gang are standing over here. Spider comes out here, takes a look at the city, and says he's gonna build himself a house with a swimming pool and a white picket fence. They see Miklo come speeding up the road right over there. You can barely see it anymore because of all the houses that have been built, but that building off in the distance can be seen in the background. And Miklo comes speeding up to the gate right there, gets out of his car and starts banging on the gate to create a distraction. Little did they know that Paco and the rest of the Vatos Locos were hiding here in the grass and over here. And then Vatos Locos comes out and takes Tres Puntos hostage. Of course, everything there in the background can be seen. All of these hills and those radio antennas up on top. Spider and the rest of the gang are hanging out right here with the LA County General Hospital in the background behind them. After some back and forth between Spider and Paco, he realizes that he's outnumbered when he sees the guys down here, and he sees Frankie behind him with the shotgun. And that's when Spider and the rest of the gang take off running down this way. Right down there is where they catch up with Spider, and that telephone pole can actually be seen in the background behind them. Right here is where Paco's standing when he asks Spider if he wants to know what it feels like to get stuck. They chase Spider back up the hill right here to the top, and Paco kicks him over the side. Right here is where he tells Miklo to hold him down. Miklo and Paco go running down the hill over here. Spider gets up, he runs over and he gets the gun from underneath his car right over here. Frankie brings the car down this way, stops right here, and they're all getting into the car. Now, of course, none of these houses were here at the time. Spider's standing right up there and he's shooting down at them. Miklo shoots back up and Spider falls down the hill and lands somewhere right over here. Paco's heading down Record Avenue, coming right towards where I'm standing. He cuts through that parking lot right there, comes out onto Whittier Boulevard, turns to the left and back onto Record Avenue and heads down that way. The police would have been parked right where this white truck is, and these buildings here can be seen in the background behind them. The cops then come right through this driveway and cut through this muffler shop, which would have been right here. Now, how do we know this is the right spot? Because of that muffler shop that I just mentioned that was iconic here in LA because of its blue and yellow stripes. But sadly, after more than 30 years in business, the muffler shop closed down and was demolished. But there's still just a few remnants of that shop hanging around, like this blue and yellow striped telephone pole, and right around the corner this light post, and this manhole cover down here. And you can still see some of the paint on the sidewalk. I don't know how they got all this paint off the sidewalk. Every square inch of it was painted. A little bit earlier in the movie, we see them driving by the muffler shop in that green chop top. and the way you can tell is the blue and yellow stripes on the sidewalk. They would have been driving down the street right here, passed by the muffler shop, and then continued that way down Whittier Boulevard. Notice this telephone pole and that street sign, which can be seen when they're running from the cops just before turning into this alley right here. After we see them make the quote-unquote Chicano U-turn, we see them driving through this alley as they look down below and notice that the cops are driving right alongside them on Floral Drive. They continue through the alley onto Indiana Street. They look down the hill and notice the cops down below, but they didn't see the lady and the kid crossing the street, and they end up crashing into a car right here in front of me. Chewy and Frankie escape by hopping the fence of this house, and Paco and Miklo are left behind right over here at the crashed car. LA County General Hospital is where we see Cruz for the first time after being dropped on that fire hydrant. He comes out of that center door right there as his family comes up the steps to greet him. And then right over here, we see Paco come from behind this wall in his military uniform. We then see Cruz and Paco walking down the front steps of the hospital. This is the art gallery where Cruz has his art show. I believe it's the back of the store where Cruz stands talking with his parents before heading inside to the art gallery. Right here in front is where Gilbert's wagon would have been parked, and we see Frankie and Chewy standing by the front steps trying to get into the art show. The inside of the store has been remodeled quite a bit, but as you can see, it still has the same white brick walls and the same style ceiling that we see in the movie. This window right here is the one that we see the camera looking through when we see Gilbert's wagon come racing around the corner, pulling up to the front of the art gallery. And we actually get a good shot of these street signs for Melrose and Croft in that same scene. This is where we see Juanito throwing Chewy's shoes up onto the electrical wire. And of course, right across the street is Cruz's loft. Now, as you can see, it's changed quite a bit over the years, but you can tell this is definitely the place. We get a good shot of all these houses up on the hill when Paco comes here to visit Cruz later in the movie. Right over here, this is where Juanito's funeral was. You can tell this is the right spot by this tombstone and this tombstone over here. Cruz would have been standing right over here behind a tree that no longer exists. But this tombstone, this angel statue, and this structure back here are very recognizable in the scene. And this is pretty much the shot we get as Cruz hangs his head and walks away. This is where Popeye comes around the corner on his way to Carmen's house, but instead he finds the cops. Right there in that driveway, that's where the police officer would have been standing, waving Popeye down the road. And right there, that's Carmen's house. Down that long driveway behind the house is where the scene takes place with Paco trying to purchase the drugs from Carmen. And right here in front of the house is where Paco's getting hosed off, and we see Carmen being taken away in handcuffs right by the front porch right there. These houses across the street can be seen very briefly when Paco comes chasing after Popeye. Paco would have been running down the street right here. He comes chasing after Popeye's car, and that police car comes out of that street, blocking Popeye, causing him to make a left onto this street right over here. So basically, Popeye's car would have been stopped right next to that Nissan Pathfinder. All these houses here can be seen in the background. And this is where Paco's walking away, telling him to check the trunk. We see Cruz's van driving down the street and pulling up right here in front of Popeye's apartments. This is where the Pleasant Avenue famous apartments used to be. Right where this metro station now is, this is where Popeye's apartments were. And these buildings over here are about the last thing left. All three of these buildings can be seen in the movie. Now, I reached out to some of the store owners, and they confirmed that this is the correct place. Right over there, that's Pleasant Avenue, and it used to run right in front of these businesses. When Cruz is coming down the street, we can actually see this shot over here of this building, the freeway overpass, and this tree. Now there's still a payphone around here. I wonder why Popeye didn't just use this payphone to call the police.
Oye, narco, you like busting dope dealers?
Although they make several references to being on Whittier Boulevard, in reality, they're in the San Fernando Valley. This 99-cent store was the Zodies that Miklo goes to rob the armored truck. Right about here is where Paco and Raleigh, aka Biff, would have been sitting in the truck keeping watch on the Zodies. That's when the van comes in this driveway right here, moving through the parking lot, heading past all of these businesses. You can very briefly see the roof line of some of these houses over here and the bottom of this sign, which matches up perfectly. The armored truck would have been parked right over here on the right side of the store, and the van would have pulled up somewhere right here towards the middle. This is pretty much the shot that we get as Paco jumps out of the truck. Notice these billboards across the street and the roof on that shopping center. This plaza across the street can be seen, and believe it or not, that nail salon was there at the time and appears to have the same phone number that it did in the movie. In this shot, we see a sign for Dale's Jr., and if you look over there, just past the car wash, we see a sign for Dale's Liquor and Junior Market. Right here, we get a good shot of everything in the background. That plaza across the street with the nail salon, the Zodies sign that's now the 99-cent store sign, and that Dale's Jr. Liquor sign across the street. One of the guys jumps in the back of the van, and the van takes off. That building across the street that's now an AutoZone can be seen in the background. As the van speeds out of the driveway turning onto Woodman, we get this shot of everything across the street. That dairy is exactly the same as we see it in the movie, including the design on the front of the building and the big milk sign right in front. The Taekwondo place next door was a flower and gift shop, and that white sign on the side of the building appears to be the same one that we see in the movie. Miklo takes off running over this way and hides behind a van that would have been parked right here. This is where Paco finds out that it's Miklo and tries to convince him to turn himself in. But right here, this is where Miklo decides to take off running, and Paco has to make the decision to shoot him in the leg. That's the telephone pole that you can see in the movie. This is the location where Smokey and Popeye have the meeting under the bridge. This is the exact spot where Smokey was standing. You can tell by the curve in the freeways. And right there, that's where Smokey's running away from Popeye. Paco comes down that alley and parks alongside the fence next to that school, and then heads into this church to try and find Smokey. And right in front of this building is where Paco and Ving Rhames argue about whether or not Paco's qualified to stay on the case. And right in front of these church doors is where Paco convinces him that he is qualified. At the base of that power station, right next to the 6th Street Bridge, is where we see Cruz's giant mural at the end of the movie. Now there's rumors online that that mural was actually painted on this wall in real life, and a couple of years ago the city painted over it. The truth is, that mural was never actually here in the LA River. It was actually painted on some large pieces of wood, and the original artist still owns it, and it's currently in San Antonio, Texas. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. If anybody watching knows where these spots or any other spots I might have missed are located, please get in touch with me, and once I have all the locations together, I'll gladly shoot a follow-up video. I want to give a special thank you to my wife, who spent hours and hours helping me with this video. Please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.